Hi guys, in this video we're going to talk about how self-care, self-development, self-love can be actually very toxic and how it can harm your mental health, your relationships, your life in general. First of all, my name is Victoria Kesseli. I'm a clinical psychologist. I am also a narrative practitioner and I work as a therapist with couples, families and individuals. So I work in the sphere. I heard so much about this self-care talk, self-love talk. So it's extra pleasure to deconstruct it today together. The point of this video is not to say that some ideas are bad and some ideas are good, some advice is bad and some advice is good. The point today is to kind of make this discourse of self-care look less total, less overwhelming, less absolute. Make it just one of the possible ways to see things. Self-care ideas is only one way to see mental health and to do something for your mental health. It's not the way, it's not the only way, it's not some criteria to decide if you are good or not good, adult or not adult, mature or not mature, dependent or independent, healthy or not healthy, and so on. So my point is not to kind of say that self-care is bad always. My point is to just show how it can be seen and how we can be more varied in our perceptions of what is normal and what is not normal. So let's begin. And first of all, I also want to notice that this video is not just theoretical or not just empty talk. Self-care, self-love is something that influences almost everyone because we live in the same society, we receive the same message from the media, content, online, books, and so on. So we are all influenced by this message. So listening to this video is deeply personal, and I encourage you to think how those ideas influenced you personally, how it made you think about yourself, about your relationships, about your needs, about your feelings, about other people, about what is good and what is not good. So I encourage you to think personally, what is your personal relationship with those ideas and how they personally influenced you, and what you want to keep and what you want to let go of for happier life for yourself or for more contentment. So first of all, it is important to understand that any kind of mental health advice, even the words that we use to talk about mental health, all come not out of nowhere. They all come from social discourse. They all are influenced by current political structure, political regime, political hierarchies, also economic structure, by society in which we live in, globalization, capitalism, national states, all those outside factors heavily influence what kind of language we use, how we talk about mental health and emotions and all that, and also what kind of tools we see in making ourselves feel better and making ourselves more content in our life. It is very important to understand not to take any psychological facts or advice as an absolute, but to understand that any such advice comes from certain context. Okay, for example, let's go with examples. For example, if we talk about relationships and you just watch videos on YouTube or TikTok or wherever, one of the main discourse we hear is discourse about boundaries, right? And the whole concept of boundaries, it doesn't come out of nowhere. It comes from, first of all, individualistic society, my private property, capitalistic society, my private property, not our property, my. Then also it comes from us having national states. We have states with borders, with citizenships, with people can be foreigners to us, depending if they're from the same state or not. So those concepts heavily influence our language and heavily influence our worldview. Maybe if we talk with somebody from, I don't know, 16th century, they would not have the idea to talk about boundaries when it comes to relationships. Do you understand what I mean? This whole concept and discourse of boundaries is coming from society in which we are living. It doesn't come out of nowhere. And the problem with discourses is that if we have one dominant discourse, it is kind of monopolizing our language and our view of things, and we don't discuss and think in other discourses. So if we focus so much on boundaries, it means that we are not focusing on something else. If we focus so much on self-care, it means that we are also not focusing on something else. So any kind of dominant discourse, dominant idea, it is kind of stealing space and time from other ideas, right? So if we, for example, are preoccupied with the idea of boundaries, it means that we might not be thinking more about empathy and about taking care of relationships. It might mean that we are more preoccupied about setting and protecting our boundaries rather than thinking, what makes a happy relationship for me? How do I want to be in my relationships? What kind of friend I want to be, and so on, right? If we think so much about boundaries, we don't think about other things. Same for self-care. This whole concept also comes from individualistic, capitalistic society, and also quite isolated society. I mean, automized, like we are often lonely nowadays, right? In the past, we used to live in tribes or maybe small communities of people. We used to have extended family nearby. We used to have much more social connections in, in our environment. And nowadays, yes, we see more people, but we don't actually share our lives with them. We kind of interact with them on some superficial level. And oftentimes we are left feeling lonely. And I think partly maybe it explains why so many people suffer with mental health, because loneliness definitely contributes to that. And while we are lonely and we live in isolated society, individualistic, capitalistic worldview is saying to us that it is basically our responsibility to fix our loneliness, that we should not feel bad being lonely. We should self-care, self-love ourselves to fix ourselves, right? The main advice you can hear when you try to Google, I don't know, mental health or something, you will see something like self-care. Like you can do journaling, you can do meditation, you can perform different self-care exercises to make yourself feel better. Of course, we can still hear advice like you can go talk to a therapist or to your friend, but the discourse of self-care is occupying a lot of our mental space, media content, advice, and also our time and effort. How do actually normal, healthy humans work? Let's talk about this. First of all, humans, unlike other animals, we have facial expressions, right? Whenever we feel upset or happy, angry, or ashamed or something else, our face shows it. Our body language shows it. Our posture shows it. The way we talk shows it. So humans, we have such a nuanced and such fast reacting signaling system about our emotions and our distress. For example, snakes, they don't have it. Snakes are solitary animals most often, right? And they don't have some facial, mimics to signal other snakes how they feel. They don't. And snakes kind of take care of themselves. They hunt, they live on their own, they may be mate together, but they don't really have societies or relationships or families or something like that, right? and they don't need to signal fast how they are feeling. So just the fact that we have faces and that we show emotion with our face in a matter of seconds, only that fact should lead us to suggest that humans are actually designed to not self-care, but to care for each other, right? Because if we were designed to self-care, then why show things on our face, right? If we were like, then we would just feel things and we would decide, oh, I feel angry, I need to self-care. No, we show things on our face in a matter of seconds. We signal to others how we feel. We signal to others that we need care, we need help, we need attention. And also, we have a very developed empathy, right? When we see other people, we can, by small nuances in their face, we can understand if they feel sad or ashamed or scared. We can make those small nuances, we can understand their emotions from that. This is actually amazing how we can see those. So both our amazing signaling system with our face and our amazing system of recognizing those signals, both of those actually say that humans are designed to take care of each other. We are not designed to only self-care. And it just makes sense. You know, if you are sick, it's more effective if somebody else does, I don't know, hunting for you or feeding you or doing some kind of, sorry, my cat is mischievous there, or doing some kind of labor for you, because when you're sick, it's going to be more dangerous for you to hunt, more difficult for you to hunt, and so on. So it makes sense. If you're sick, if you're tired, if you're in pain, somebody else takes care of you. It is easier for them and faster. And oftentimes it is the same with emotions. Oftentimes, when, let's say, you're depressed or feeling very anxious or feeling distressed in any way, oftentimes it can be more effective, faster, to talk with someone about it, or to just have somebody else hug you and caress you and tell you that everything will be okay, right? It can be much more effective than trying to journal. I'm sorry, it can. And this is why therapy works better than just reading a book about therapy, right? Like, if you actually work with an actual alive human and they understand your emotions and they can just witness your life, all that works much better than just reading a book about it. All right, then just, of course, reading a book, you also kind of interact with the author, with the characters and so on, so it's maybe not a perfect example, but let's say it is more effective than just doing some exercise, right? That's why we cannot just automate this or make, I don't know, artificial intelligence be our therapist in a way, because this human to human contact, this is very important, very important. So what it leads us to think next. In our society, if you need other people to regulate your emotions, you're considered to be dependent or immature or childish or something else, right? Strong, independent, and mature people should be able to self-regulate and to always be strong and nice and to only come to other people in a good mood, you know? And here comes this whole discourse that your feelings is your responsibility, my feelings are my responsibility. But personally, it's a little bit silly, because taking care of each other is faster, easier, more effective than trying to take care of yourself all the time. There is also this kind of hypothesis about how trauma appears, uh, that trauma can appear actually not when something traumatic happens, right? Something bad can happen to you, but it doesn't mean you will have trauma about it. There is this idea that trauma appears when our relationships suffer in some way and when we are isolated in this trauma. So if, for example, you have a traumatic experience, but you are able to share it with others, discuss it with others, it is a huge relief. Or if you were not alone in this traumatic experience, if you felt understood, if you felt that there is somebody else who can protect you, take care of you, and so on. However, if you feel isolated, invalidated in your trauma, like other people tell you that it doesn't make sense and you're imagining stuff, or it's something wrong it's something wrong with you, and so on, then you're more likely to have trauma. This is one of hypotheses that exists in psychology about kind of like why in some cases we do have trauma and in other cases we don't. And this would also explain why people often have trauma in relationships. um, I don't have statistics, but like from my observations, my subjective, not perfect experience, relationship trauma is more common than, I don't know, being in an accident and traumatized from that. Because like being traumatized by somebody whom you trust, or who loves you, or who you think loves you, like your parents, your family members, um, being abandoned by them, being left alone in your suffering, and them not seeing it and neglecting you, all those things can cause trauma much more than just being in a car accident, right? Even though car accidents are also traumatic. So yes, there is this idea that trauma appears when we are not able to process some things and not able to rely on somebody else in this experience, when we are not able to be understood, validated, just witnessed, just to have somebody alive and warm and actual person near us. When we are isolated with traumatic experience, that's when we kind of suffer from it the most. And if you look at any kind of difficult, challenging life situations, being isolated in them, this is maybe one of the worst companions, right? And this is why it is so difficult to deal with mental health struggles or struggles when you are being pathologized, or when you are being dismissed in society, when you're being marginalized, when you are being called not normal, when your feelings are being called invalid, that they don't make sense, that you yourself are insane or something is wrong with you. All those things are contributing factors to how bad you will feel. So actually, it is quite amazing. You can take some very traumatic circumstances, but if people find union and support and communal connections, and they relate to each other, they take care of each other, they talk to each other, they maybe express their emotions in art, they dance together, sing together, they, you know, have this taking care of each other and taking care of those experiences together, this is healing. However, if you isolate a person and make them feel like there is something wrong with them, that their feelings is their fault, or something is wrong with them, that it doesn't make sense they feel this way, you make them, you pathologize their condition or their emotions, then it makes it worse, you know. So yes, when we are in stressful situation, our attachment system gets activated. Um, and this is very clearly this can be very clearly seen when working with certain conditions, like if you're working with somebody with kind of unstable emotions, right? When they are not as or maybe very intense emotions, as a therapist you can see that once their emotional arousal increases, their attachment system also gets activated. They also try to attach and to connect and to relate to another person. Of course, it doesn't maybe always work perfectly, but this is like also one of the first things that appears in our brain. But what we have in our society is kind of the opposite. Instead of telling people that they feel upset and distressed and that it makes sense that they feel like that it makes sense that they are upset or, don't see meaning in things, or they feel lonely, or they feel like they need other people, instead we tell them that something is wrong with you. Maybe your brain has some bad chemistry, or maybe your parents are at fault. They didn't raise you right. Of course, in some cases, parents are partly at fault. But what I'm meaning to say that we are kind of putting too much attention to this person and their own biology or their own actions, and too much attention to their parents, but we don't pay attention to their external circumstances, right? It's completely normal to feel depressed if you're isolated, lonely, working in an office job without much movement, alienated from your own body, from nature, from community. Of course you feel depressed. This makes sense. It totally makes sense. But instead of looking at all those factors, we just look at the person and say that they are depressed. Something is wrong with them, not with the outside circumstances. Same for postnatal depression, for example. Instead of saying that women who have small children, they don't have enough support from society, enough support from communities, enough, help with that, we say that no, 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 it's they who are depressed. So we kind of label them. We have this internalizing language. We internalize everything and put it on concrete individuals instead of externalizing it and seeing it as outside problem. That problem is not in the person, problem is in the problem. Okay? And this self-care and self-love discourse is part of that, as I see it. So instead of telling the person that, okay, you feel bad, it is normal to ask for help. It is normal to want to be understood and to be hugged and to be cherished and to be understood and validated and just be together with other people. It doesn't make you dependent. It doesn't make you immature. It doesn't make you childish or weak to ask for help, to be with people, to receive care. Instead, we tell that person, you should meditate, you should journal alone, again, alone, and take care of your own feelings, of your own responsibility about those feelings. But as I say, oftentimes trying to take care of yourself when you are sick, trying to take care of yourself when you're feeling unwell, doesn't work as fast and as well as asking somebody else to help you, right? Like if you're feeling sick, it's difficult to do household chores or something like that, or to cook food for yourself or something. It's much easier, more effective, and it makes sense to ask your friend to help you out. And then when you have some problem, or when your friend has some problem, you can help them out. Same with emotions. If you feel distressed and like everything is falling apart, it makes sense to ask somebody to hug you and to just be near you when you're feeling that bad. And when they feel bad, you can hug them and you can be with them. And this can work better and faster than trying to self-care. So the point here is not to say that you should never self-care or something like that. The point here is to say that you taking care of yourself is not in any way superior to asking others to take care of you. Both can be a choice. Both can be something that you do. And both are completely normal and healthy and so on. It really depends on what works best for you. And of course, sometimes we don't have support systems, and this is a pity. We might not have somebody to hug us. We might not have somebody to take care of us. But then feeling lonely completely makes sense, completely justifiable. It's completely normal that you want to rely on somebody else. And it doesn't make you selfish or egoistic or immature or any of those labels. So the point is not to say that you should not journal or self care or self love and all that. The point is to say that we as humans are designed to ask for help. It is in matter of seconds reflected in our face. And we are also designed to understand feelings of others and to help them. We have empathy. Of course, not everybody has kind of empathy work in the same way, right? You can have some brain neurological different neurodivergence and so on. And I'm not talking about like different variations, but if we generalize, people are designed to ask for help immediately with our face and to give that help with empathy, right? We are not designed to be like snakes. And if you feel like you need support, it's completely normal to ask for it. Completely healthy. It doesn't make you childish, dependent, infantile, or whatnot. However, of course, we are also facing outside circumstances that we are quite isolated in our times. Like, yes, we have access to so many people with dating apps, social media, and so on. We have access to looking at them from far away or to having some kind of superficial connections with them, but we do not have actual access to them in their vulnerable state. And there are not that many people on whom we can rely. In this individualistic capitalistic society, we mostly rely on ourselves and our closest family and maybe some friends, but this is not so lucky. Many people in adult age, they don't have many friends. So we are kind of isolated. Yeah, and we are also alienated from nature. Nature is also a great help for us, for our mental health, but we are alienated from that. Physical exercise, physical activity is also very good for mental health and it can literally heal trauma. But we are also oftentimes alienated from that in our modern life. And it makes sense that so many people are depressed or so many people struggle in this lifestyle. Not to say that this is necessarily the bad way or other ways are necessarily superior, but we need to consider those outside factors. And of course, you might understand that it is normal to ask for help, but you don't have anybody to ask for this help. Maybe you think so, right? So makes sense that sometimes we have to rely on ourselves and take care of ourselves. But it's normal to understand that this is not some standard of how a normal, healthy adult is functioning. It is normal to rely on other people and to be taken care of, and also normal to want to take care of other people. And in our dominant discourse of independence, self care, and taking care of your own responsibility and being distant from other people and putting boundaries everywhere. In this discourse, being in need of attention and care is getting called dependent, right? Which is just this norm dictating how it should be. Of course, if you feel naturally better when you take care of your own emotions, you can do that. I'm not saying that one way is superior or inferior, it's just that both are okay. And you needing other people to regulate your emotions or to feel better doesn't mean that something is definitely wrong with you. This is absolutely normal for humans to need people to feel better when they feel distressed. This is completely valid first reaction to any kind of stress, to call your friend and talk about it, to ask somebody to hug you or to cry while somebody else is hugging you. This is so normal and nothing bad about it. Of course, it doesn't mean that I don't know, we terrorize somebody, calling them every day 24/7, right? And I think this is also part of our society, that we are alienated and lonely, and we are mostly relying on a very small group of people. And in the past, when we lived in communities and families and tribes, all that, we had more people to help us take care of our children, to help us when we feel distressed, right? We didn't have only one romantic partner, let's say. So of course nowadays, if we are trying to ask our single romantic partner to take care of our emotions, it's too much for them. Maybe they also need to be taken care of. So normally we would have like a community of people taking care of each other, depending on who is feeling how, right? Today you feel sick and you need care and help and affection. Tomorrow you feel great and you can take care of somebody else. And this is also something important, that people feel happy taking care of each other. People find a lot of value and meaning taking care of each other. And this idea that taking care of each other is some kind of burden, or some kind of additional work, additional responsibility, it's also coming from this individualistic capitalistic worldview. But actually oftentimes people find meaning in their life when they are connected to other people. Even I at least read somewhere the statistics that the main factor defining how long some elderly person will live is not their health or diet or something like that. The main factor in their old age is if they have somebody to live for, if somebody needs them, if they feel like they're important to somebody else. So let's not assume that taking care of others is some kind of annoying job that we are forced to do and we don't want to, and that if you ask for it, then you are burdening the other person. You're not burdening them. You are giving them meaning. You are giving them opportunity to feel important. You are giving them opportunity to interact with you and to feel real and to feel like they have agency, to feel empowered. So taking care of others is actually so meaningful and so great. But yeah, I'm going to finish more or less this video, and I'm also going to say that those discourses about taking responsibility of your own emotions, fixing your emotions by yourself, or being independent, being mature, and all that, they are total for a reason. They get into many different aspects and many kinds of relationships. Even people who think that they are non-conformist outside of normal relationships, I don't know, people who practice non-monogamy, or people who belong to different, kind of not normalized styles of relationships, they are still influenced by those discourses. They are still influenced by them, because each of us is influenced by them. So we need to think for ourselves. And now I encourage you to actually think, how did this discourse of self-help, of self-love, of regulating your emotions on your own, alone, how did it influence your life? Maybe you would feel like you are being weak or incompetent or immature if you needed some help. Maybe you would avoid asking for help when you needed it. Maybe you would feel like if you don't manage to self-regulate, that something is bad with you, and maybe you would feel and think badly about yourself. Or maybe you would be too busy protecting boundaries all of the time, instead of actually taking care of people around you and of yourself and of your connections with them. How does this discourse influence your life, your relationships, your values, what you do and what you don't do? And I encourage you to kind of, decide what you want to keep and what you want to give away. Like, you don't have to keep this discourse in your life. For example, if this discourse is telling you that taking care of others is a burden and you should put boundaries to not take care of others, maybe for you it's harmful. Maybe for you it's better to say that actually I love taking care of others. It's meaningful for me, it's joyful for me, and I want to take care of others. And I don't want to protect myself with boundaries everywhere, right? And maybe the idea of boundaries is helpful for you. I am not saying that one is better than the other. I'm saying that we need to have this critical eye and to see how some ideas influence us. All of those ideas are kind of true in their own way, right? We are not arguing what is true and what is not true. We mostly just need to look at them and to decide which ideas help us. Like, if the idea of self-help and self-love and self-care helps you, go ahead. But if something in it is harmful for you, if something in it is limiting you, if something in it takes away meaningful and valuable things from your life, then you're free to let go. You're free to say that I stop following this discourse. Of course, it can be maybe not that easy, but yes, important. And there are so many different discourses in society. I'll maybe make more videos about that. But today, let's make a summary. Humans designed to show emotions, understand emotions. Humans designed to want to take care of each other and to want to ask for help when they need it. Humans designed to want a hug when they feel bad. And if you want a hug when you feel bad, it doesn't mean you're immature, weak, unhealthy, dependent. It means you are a human. Humans need other humans, or animals, or a dog, or something. We need support. We are not snakes, right? So if you have those needs, don't pathologize them. Don't say that there is something wrong with them. No, it's completely normal. This, by the way, this discourse reminds me of that idea that circulated in psychology some decades ago, that leaving kids to cry alone is good because then kids learn to self-soothe and calm down. But then, but then actual like research, as I remember correctly, if I remember correctly, showed that children don't calm down. They actually get desperate. They actually lose all hope that somebody will come, and then they kind of freeze. Like, like in run or freeze, they freeze, run or fight or freeze, this response to extreme circumstances. They freeze and they kind of just exist in this limbo state of discomfort. They don't come down, they don't self-soothe, they just go numb. So it's it's not actually healthy to leave children to cry alone. But where did we get this idea that we need to leave them to cry alone? Who told us that? How did we decide that children are manipulating us if they cry, that they are supposed to take care of themselves and take this responsibility for their own emotions? It comes from society. It doesn't come just from, some imaginary stuff. But yeah, let's not abandon our children to cry. Let's come and hug them and give them love. This is much better. Let's not traumatize them. And if we need love, let's ask for it. If we need a hug, let's ask for it. There is nothing bad about being taken care of and asking for care and giving care as well. And we don't have to be, like counting what are boundaries, who's giving more care, who's giving less care, all this stuff, right? Yeah. And so mutual aid. And I will see you in the next videos. Bye bye.